Welcome on into the hobby, Warhammer action figure fans. It appears that the algorithms of the YouTubes has led you to my channel, much to the detriment of your wallet and future bank account, because you're not going to have any money left after this hobby. I know that there is a bunch of you who have landed into this channel due to the review of the Imperial Knight as well as Angron. And since you are here and new, I am now going to guide you on what to expect from this hobby. For the purpose of this video, I will only be talking about JoyToy action figures because they comprise of the main backbone of this particular action figure hobby that we are all in right now. The first thing that you may have also noticed is that the prices of these things are absolutely not cheap, and you may have bulked on the prices as well. Your generic intercessors from the Blood Angels, the Imperial Fists, the Space Wolves, and Ultramarines serves to be the gateway drug into this hobby, as JoyToy has priced them fairly low at anywhere between $25 to $30 because obviously they want to reel you in. However, the cost of these action figures just goes up and up from there. Your average grunt type figure can run anywhere between $40 to $50. Then characters, Terminators, as well as special characters tend to be the most expensive ones that are out there, that sometimes can range between $60 and $80. Then towards the top end, there are Dreadnoughts as well as Primarchs that usually come in around $120 to $150 each. Then at the top end are massive characters and vehicles, which can go up from $300 for some vehicles as well as $700 for the Imperial Knight. So obviously this is not going to be a cheap hobby at all, so you kind of need to budget your money. So speaking of budget, I'm going to be talking a little about FOMO right here. Which action figures should you get right now, and which action figures should you wait on due to the limited budget that we all have? Well, just to let you know, the generic intercessors that I talked about, again from the Space Wolves, Ultramarines, as well as Blood Angels and Imperial Fist factions, will never run out. JoyToy will always keep producing them because, like I said, they are gateway drugs into this hobby. Next are the ones that are really popular action figures, and you can tell that they're really popular just because if they're special characters or they are Primarchs. An example is Robute as well as Castellan Crow for the Grey Knights. Those are very, very popular action figures, and those have seen many re-releases once the initial releases have run dry. So weirdly enough, the more popular the action figures are, the more likely you can push back the buying of those particular action figures because you know that those things are going to be released sometime later in the future. Finally, there are action figures that are one and done, and those are very hard to gauge sometimes. Some examples of these figures tend to be more obscure figures such as the Reavers, as well as the very small releases of Xenos such as the Tau Fire Warriors. Unfortunately, there is no way to tell what action figures are going to be re-released and which ones are going to be one and done. But the longer that you stay in the hobby, the more you get a feel of which of these action figures are going to be really popular versus not. So now that you've busted open your action figures, you might have actually seen that there are some varying heights, especially with the intercessors. So within these past 3 years, JoyToy has been doing some tweaking of the action figures in the background, and they do not announce when they do these kind of things. They make subtle improvements of those action figures, which involve swapping out body parts with newer ones. So just to let you know, there are 4 different versions of intercessors that are out there, with version 3 and version 4 being the most common right now. And with each and every single successive version that comes out, there is something called size creep, which means that the version 1s are going to be the shortest ones and the version 4 are going to be the tallest ones. I'm not really going to go into too much detail about how you can tell the difference between version 1s through 4 because I already have made an extensive video on that. So just click on the card or the link in the description below where you will be brought to that particular video. If you are enjoying this informational video thus far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can be exposed to more Warhammer 40K and Horus Heresy action figures to spend your money on. I know that the size creep is a huge sticking point for a lot of OG members of this hobby. They do complain about it a lot, but I'm just going to tell you, do not worry about that. There are ways to mitigate the height difference between each and every single one of these versions. What I do myself is I will actually put these same versions on a tier of a glass cabinet so that they look more uniform. Or if you want to mix and match, you can actually put action figures on risers, which mitigates the size creep issue. I suppose the next thing that you may notice on your action figure, aside from the height difference, is the paint quality of them. I will have to say that these action figures, compared to some legacy action figure makers such as McFarlane, look positively awesome compared to those McFarlane action figures. The earlier versions of JoyToy action figures have very strong shading as well as highlighting, but that kind of just decreases, unfortunately, through the subsequent versions that have been released. However, suffice to say, they look very good out of the factory, but that does not mean that they don't come with their inherent issues. So I am here to temper your expectations. I'll be honest with you, when I first started this channel with these action figure reviews, my videos were really cringy to watch because my expectations also had not been tempered. I nitpicked each and every single one of these action figures, painting detail to death, because I thought that these action figures were going to be meticulously hand painted as if I was meticulously hand painting them. But that simply was not going to be the case because these action figures are mass manufactured and they're cloned hundreds if not thousands of times, so there's no way that paint defects cannot happen. So you're going to be seeing blemishes such as shading bleed, random different colored paint splatters that do not belong in certain areas, sloppy looking highlights, and perhaps some screening issues, especially around the eye areas. Moving on, what are the other issues that you can expect, and most importantly, what can you do about them? In my 3 years of this hobby, I have seen my fair share of disconnected heads, purity seals that have fallen off, limbs that have popped off, as well as cracked or broken off body parts. With regards to the disconnected limbs and heads, those are obviously going to be the easiest issues to resolve, just because you can pop those limbs and heads back onto the body itself. Now, if you have some issues popping those disconnected body parts off, you can always run those action figures under hot water or use a hair dryer or heat gun, and I would be very careful with using the heat gun because they can melt the plastic, but the heat really expands the holes, which allow the disconnected parts to pop in easier. Purity seals that fall off are probably the second most common thing that I have seen, and thankfully, again, those are very easy issues to resolve. In fact, this issue is resolved through the use of super glue, and that's exactly what JoyToy uses to attach some of the different decorations onto those action figures. So I would just recommend to use a toothpick and then apply the glue onto the toothpick so that you can have a little bit more control when you put that glue onto the disconnected part. Some other issues that are major that I have run into involve cracked armor pieces and broken joints. For example, one of the cases that comes up in recent memory is when I got War Master Horus. One of the spikes on top of his armor completely sheared off and probably broke off sometime during shipping, which is again pretty disappointing. And this issue was easily remedied by using super glue by reattaching the broken part. However, if the breakage is especially egregious, then I would reach out to the vendor that you have bought the figure from. Hopefully you bought the action figure from a reputable dealer, because they will do their best to right the wrong that has occurred and probably resend you that part if the action figure is still in production. Sure, these action figures, if you buy them from AliExpress, is going to be a lot cheaper, but you probably will run into an issue if there is a problem with your action figure, and those vendors probably are not going to support you. So for your peace of mind, please click on the link in the description below, where you will be brought to a very reputable dealer that I work with all the time. His name is David Toys. They have fantastic customer service, and if there is an issue, they will do their best to right the wrong. And then to save some money, please do not forget to use the code SNS to receive 12% off of your purchase. I suppose the worst issue was when I bought a Thunderwolf Cavalry action figure. Again, during shipping, the tail completely snapped off at a crucial junction point, which leads me to the next most common issue and probably critical one, which is broken joints. Most of the time, broken ball joints are not really repairable because these are high wear parts. The most common broken joint in my experience is the T-joint that connects the torso to the two legs on an intercessor. Unfortunately, the only way to resolve a broken joint is to basically reach out to your vendor and ask for a replacement joint. Unfortunately, in the case of my Thunderwolf Cavalry, it appeared that JoyToy had stopped making that action figure at that point in time, so they did not have any joints for the Thunderwolf Cavalry available to send to me. They ended up giving credit for the action figure, but that really did not resolve the issue. So I ended up having to get my hobbying hands ready and fix the problem myself. Alright, JoyToy action figure fans, that just about does it for this video. I know that there are many other issues that you may encounter on your Warhammer 40K and Horus Heresy action figure journey, but we just simply do not have time to cover all those bases. I hope that you have found this video helpful as well as enlightening, so that you can have the proper expectations on this very expensive hobby. OGs of this channel, please let me know what I might have missed to make this video a little bit more comprehensive in the comments section below. And with that being said, members of the chapter, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support that you have been giving me. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next one.